I've been debating on posting this, not because I've been scared, but simply because this is my first post since joining Reddit. Please forgive my writing, as sometimes my wording and punctuation could be better. I'll start off by explaining the area so you can get a good picture of where this occurred. We lived in a small neighborhood. All of the surrounding streets dead end into a half-circle park. Behind the park are some woods and a railroad track. When we were younger, we all played in the front part of the woods. We never ventured too far back. This was our play area for years. Never had an issue or scare. This area was pretty and well-lit wooded area. Anyhow, one day my brother Jimmy, my best friend Sarah, and my brother's best friend Ian were all building a dam in the middle of the small creek that ran through the park and the woods. The boys decided they were going to head back to Ian's house for some snacks. Sarah and I said we would stay and finish our camp area. As we were moving rocks around, I got a very odd feeling come over me. A strange feeling that we were being watched. I immediately think it's the boys trying to scare us and just continue with what we were doing. Sarah and I load up some big rocks and head back to the creek and put them down at the dam. I get that feeling again, and as I stand up, I see something straight in front of me about 30 feet away. I can't clearly make out what it is yet because it's behind a bush, but I do see that it's a pattern of red and blue. I know that's nothing the boys had on, so at this point I'm focusing, trying to figure out what it is. As I'm scanning up the bush, I start to realize it's a clown. I kid you not, my heart started pounding immediately. The clown in my eyes lock. He's wearing a blue or red hat with a reverse pattern red-blue jumpsuit. I grab Sarah's shirt and immediately pull her upright, and she notices the man right away. He's smiling, with a full face of makeup, and he has a huge knife. We both say nothing and start running as fast as our legs can take us. He begins to follow. We can hear twigs snapping and ground crunching, but we're booking it. We run through the front of the woods and through the side of the park and up her dead-end street. Ian and Jimmy are 2 houses up from the end and see us running and are screaming. What is going on? While running past her, scream, a clown, and they start laughing. We're still running, screaming for our lives, and finally make it to the middle of the street where Sarah's dad, Danny, is, now running out in front door because he hears us screaming too. We meet Danny right at the beginning of the neighbor's house, and we're trying to explain what we see and what we had saw, and he says, "Girls, stop it now. This is ridiculous. What are you talking about?" We try to catch our breath. By this time, Jimmy and Ian have caught up to us. We are crying and pointing and telling Danny again that we've seen a clown with a knife. Jimmy and Ian are laughing. Danny is asking if they played a prank on us. About this time, an old yellow Pinto type of car comes from the dead end at the park and pulls right up next to the sidewalk of the yard we were in. Sure enough, plain as day, it's the clown. No hat this time, but knife in hand and telling us to come here. Danny starts shoving us all towards the house, and he himself is scared and running now. The car drives off down the street. We get inside and Danny calls the police. We had to give statements, and police patrolled the neighborhood and the park for a few weeks. We were never allowed to go in the park again, and a few months after that, the city started to clear out the woods, cut down many trees, and made a walking area so that you could see through all the way to the train tracks. My friend and I used to talk about this many times up until her death. No one would believe us had they not seen it as well. It was just so scary. I think they only got to see him because whoever it was had to go down the dead-end street to leave the neighborhood. Either way, this man was not afraid of us, nor the small group of people that gathered from our screaming. He very bravely stopped right in front of us as her father tried to comfort us and calm us down, all while flashing his knife. We were lucky to be alive, I feel. Had it just been one of us left in the woods, which sometimes occurred, I don't think there would have been a group of 4 of us any longer. Sarah's dad stopped drinking that day. Now, we all have a fear of clowns. Okay, so I've posted on this sub before, and I was just thinking about creepy encounters I'd had. And it struck me that this one probably qualifies as kind of creepy, so hopefully I'm right. This happened about a year ago now. I'm a college student, and I was basically forced to move out on my own, which I didn't mind, but that meant finding a new roommate, which can be a daunting and scary experience. I've had a few weird encounters, but I think this one takes the cake. I posted on Craigslist looking for a bedroom in a shared house or apartment for $300 or less, and on my ad I mentioned, please, no phone calls, only text or email, because I wanted to find being on the phone with someone I haven't had a chance to size up a really uncomfortable situation. I'm just awkward, I guess. Anyway, I got a call from a dude who clearly didn't read the no calls part, which I mentioned because this type of phone call was exactly the reason that I don't like to talk to strangers on the phone. At first, he was just pleasant and normal, told me he had a room available and relevant information like that. We started to talk about when and where we'd meet, and he started going on tangents about random stuff. I'm a combination of too interested in deep conversation and too awkward to end the call when it started to get weird, so this call went on for 2 hours, and we talked about the meaning of life and all kinds of weird stuff. Honestly, this should have been the red flag, and I shouldn't have met him, and of course, I also should have grown a pair and told him I needed to leave. So he wants me to meet him at this place of his and show me the room. I've since learned that you should really insist on meeting in public first. I got to his neighborhood and it was run down on a level that made the ghetto I grew up in look nice. Saggy front porches, hot cracked concrete, sad people with old beat up Lincolns. You get the picture. His house blended right in. The yard was seriously overgrown and the front door didn't work. So I went around the back and just looking at the guy standing in the doorway and seeing the kitchen behind him was enough to make me realize I really just wanted to leave. There was no way I was going to be here. The guy in the doorway was a man with a sort of clown-style afro. He was leaning on a cane on his right side. His eyes looked crazy, and the house smelled musty from 10 feet away. Again, I'm a coward, so instead of trusting my gut, I go outside and I'm polite, thinking, it's okay. I'll be over in 20 minutes and I can get the heck out of here. I don't know what made me think that this man, who had a 2-hour conversation with me on the phone about life and philosophy, would let me get away so easily. He took me up a flight of creaky steps into a small bedroom with no door and a mattress on the floor. I thought, no way would I live with a 40-something man. I was 19 and a female, with no door on the bedroom, but it was a moot point because my mind was made up before I even saw the room. I wouldn't have lived there for free, let alone for a couple $100 a month. Things got weird. He tried to hold me hostage with conversation again. I think he was lonely. He talked about how some of his family were millionaires. He might have been delusional. The whole story seemed made up. Then he told me about an 18-year-old girl who has also checked out the room and tried to sleep with him. Told me about how his mom hated white people. He was black, I was white. And sounded like he sympathized with her. Obviously, that was super uncomfortable. Eventually, I was able to break in the conversation and plucked up the courage to make up an excuse to leave. I was never so happy to leave a place like that in my life. I don't know that he was necessarily a assaultist or something like that, but he really gave me the creeps. The story begins sometime around my junior year of high school. I was 15 years old, and in that phase of my life where I didn't really listen to anyone, yet at the same time was completely impressionable. At the beginning of the year, I was sitting in my 6th period chem class, probably zoned out, looking at my phone under the clunky gray lab table, when I heard 2 people laughing to my right. The way the classroom was set up was a long rectangle, so essentially, the teacher wouldn't really be able to hear what was going on in the back. The people laughing were a guy and a girl, Eric and Callie. They were somewhat popular. Not the top of the food chain by any means, but everyone knew them. My younger sister knew Eric. They had a tennis match a month or 2 earlier. Eric was really funny. This is a crucial element to this story. He was definitely the class clown. He was tall, good-looking, and extremely charismatic. I wasn't attracted to him, but I could see why everyone else was. I think it was at this point in time where I made one of the most regrettable decisions of my life. I decided I wanted to be friends with Eric. Eric was in my second, fifth, and sixth periods. The next morning, I poked him in the back in Spanish class. "Hey," I said, "I heard my sister kicked your butt in tennis." He turned around with a goofy smile, his friends all looking at me. "Who is your sister?" His voice had a specific cadence to it. "Karen," I replied. I don't remember the rest of this encounter, but I'm pretty sure he denied losing the tennis match. I think the conversation ended shortly thereafter, and my day continued until I saw him in math class. Algebra 2 was one of those classes where the teacher would lecture for a while, give us homework, and then let us have the rest of the period to work on it so we wouldn't have to do it when we got home. I was looking at my paper, probably confused, when I hear a familiar voice. "Hey, girl." I looked down and saw Eric crouched next to my desk on the floor. "What's up?" He started asking me about tennis, and once I said that I played, a huge smile spread across his face. I think this is when he latched onto me. He asked for my phone number, and I gave it to him. That day, in our next period, he introduced me to Callie. She was older and really intimidating. I never met anyone like her, and I was beginning to get excited at the prospect of these new, interesting friends. That night, he kept texting me nonstop. He would ask me questions and then would reply, "Ha ha 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 ha," to everything I said. I thought it was weird, but that was just his humor. After this day, he didn't leave my side. We spent most of the school day together, and then would be in constant contact after school. This was 2011, so we were mostly on Facebook or doing group phone calls with Callie and two other friends of mine I had brought into the group, Sasha and Natalie. There were lots of red flags. Eric wanted me to hold hands with him at school and told everyone he had taken my virginity. For some reason, this wasn't something I got too mad about. I just thought it was weird. He would say, "Your virginity belongs to me." Again, I assumed it was a joke. I always assumed Eric wasn't attracted to girls because he said he wasn't, although he would sleep with them and then tell everyone, making fun of them. We would walk down the hallway after fifth period, and he would stop for a group of freshman girls waiting for him, give each of them a peck on the lips. One time, we were walking to the bus, and there was a girl about 10 feet in front of us. She was cheating on her boyfriend, which I whispered to him, pointing her out. Yes, it was childish, but keep in mind this was high school, and I was 15. He proceeds to run towards her and stomps her, only to point at me and tell her what I said. She came over and yelled at me, and he watched, laughing. A few months into the friendship, I began sneaking out with Eric, bringing him alcohol from my dad's liquor cabinet. Eric was a heavy drinker, especially considering her age. This came to a head when he asked Callie and I to come over one night. His dad was in prison and his mom was in rehab, so he lived with his grandparents. We pulled up outside of his house and his car wasn't there. We waited for a while and finally, he sped into the neighborhood and stumbled out of the driver's side, wasted. We followed him inside. His grandparents weren't home. I don't know what I said, but next thing I know, he grabs a knife off the kitchen counter and charges at me. I took off running and made it into Callie's car, slamming the door shut and locking it. He stares at me through the window before bursting out in laughter. My heart was racing and my blood ran cold. Callie got into the car and we left. I don't know why I stuck around. It was like an abusive relationship. He told me he was the only guy who would ever find me attractive, but somehow it would turn into a joke and I would let it go. I believe the breaking point was when I heard about the baby squirrel. He had found a live baby squirrel after school and brought it home. His grandparents said they didn't want it in the house, so we walked outside and tossed it into the retention pond before walking back in. I wasn't there for that, but it disgusted me. In algebra, a few days later, he knocked my pen off my desk and called me the B word. Eric, I don't want to be friends with you anymore, I told him firmly. Don't talk to me. His head snapped back and he moved to the desk in front of mine. You won't be able to ignore me, he laughed. I know where to find you. I'm going to college next year, I reminded him. Yeah, well, you'll never be able to get away from me. Are you threatening me, I said. He said coldly, yes. I know this sounds like a cheesy horror movie, but that was our exchange, word for word. The next week was endless phone calls and him trying to get me to talk to him at school. At first it was jovial, when he thought I was going to change my mind. And then he came up to me in math class and opened his backpack. Inside were several large kitchen knives, just in case there's a zombie attack. Another big smile. I should have told the teacher at that point. I really should have. But it wasn't until a few days later, when he pushed me too far. I'm going to assault you, then I'm going to murder you, and I'll make Natalie film it. I went to the dean's office and told them everything at that point. I had grown up being told not to snitch, but I couldn't focus in class anymore. I'd been a good kid. I'd never been in trouble, so they believed what I told them. Here's the kicker. They called him into the office and he admitted to everything. Nodded, smiling, confirming all of the stories I told them. Dean Thomas sat me down the next day and told me that I needed to call the police. They said there was clearly something wrong with him and that he just didn't get it. They put a school version of restraining order on him. He wasn't to talk to me, and during tests, he had to be taken to a separate classroom. He would do everything he could to get around those rules, though. He would talk about me right in front of my face, but wasn't technically talking to me. He said out loud to the class, "Some girl put a restraining order on me because she thinks I'm dangerous." The teacher laughed and said, "Doesn't she know you're joking?" That's just you being you, Eric. The backlash I faced was enormous. All of his groupies shunned me and laughed at me too. Even my own friends said I was overreacting. Except for Natalie. She was always intuitive. She had told me that he also made her feel uncomfortable and had started following her from class to class. When his birthday came, he approached me with Callie and Callie said, "He wants you to wish him happy birthday." Eventually, a mutual friend called me and told me Eric had threatened to kill himself if I wouldn't talk to him again. I went back to the dean's office, and this time every dean, vice principal, and even the principal got involved. My school was big, and there were 550 kids in my class alone. The school year ended, and without the protection of the authorities there, I was fielding more phone calls, and when I blocked his number, he would call me on Callie's phone. He would drive around my neighborhood to see if my car was in the driveway. He even came to my tennis matches, the ones we initially bonded over. I could see his silhouette in the fence watching me. By senior year, things had calmed down. His attention was elsewhere, and I had picked the classes with the dean to ensure we weren't in any together. But he was still watching. I would be walking down the hallway with someone he didn't know, and all of a sudden he would be walking with us, next to my unassuming friend. "Hi, I'm Eric. Nice to meet you." He told my friends he had decided to wait for me because we were soulmates, and I'd come around eventually. I graduated high school and moved out of town. I told my new college friends that if something ever happened to me, he was the one who did it. And that's all. There's no conclusion, really, except he always knows when I come into town. I don't know how, because I have him blocked and everything. I suspect he still checks my house. He's been arrested since on drug charges and a few DUIs. I'm looking at his mugshots as I write this, to remember those dead eyes. Sometimes I think maybe I overreacted, but maybe it was all a joke. I don't know. I was 12 when I first saw it. I looked out my window and across the street. At the edge of the woods was a clown. The carnival was in town and on the other side of the woods, but I still didn't know why there was a lone clown just looking at my house from across the street. I closed my curtains and tried my best to sleep, but even though there was a thin dark veil of curtains between me and the clown, I could still feel it watching me. The next morning came around and me and my family were gathered around the table for breakfast. I tried to tell my mom and dad about the clown, but they just wrote it off as a bad nightmare. What kind of clown was it? My little brother asked. No, Jimmy, you just ate your food, my mom said. I was hoping they were right. I was hoping that it was just a bad dream, but of course, it wasn't. That same night I went to bed. Just before turning it in, I looked out the window to see if the clown was still there. Turns out he was. I ran into Mom and Dad's bedroom and told them. My dad ran to my bedroom to look out the window, and surprisingly the clown was still there standing and watching. James, you stay in this house. That's when my mom came in and looked out the window to see the clown staring at us. Oh my goodness. My dad ran out with his hunting rifle. Get out of here and you don't come back. The clown turned and walked back into the woods. The next morning, my dad made it a point to go to the carnival and tell them about what was happening with the clown situation. It worked out because my mother was thinking about taking us anyway. Come on kids, it's summer. Why don't we all go down? Me and my brother were waiting for a chance to finally go to the carnival. By afternoon that day, we were heading to the fairgrounds. Dizzying rides, fried foods, and fun games that me and my brother knew we would spend out our whole allowance on. Alright, you kids stick together and have fun. Me and Jimmy were off to ride some rides as well. Mom and Dad went to chew out management for the clown situation. After winning a large plush elephant for my younger brother and a few deep-fried Oreos, we almost completely forgot about the clown situation until we saw it. The clown, the one outside my window, he was at the entrance of one of the big tops. I wasn't thinking at the time and approached the man. Hello? Well, howdy you kids. Here to see the big show? What's the show, we asked. Well, there would be a magician and a comedian, and even a tightrope act, he said. I knew the next question sounded weird, but I had to ask it. Are you the one standing outside our house every night? He looked confused. Can't say I am. Never been to your house. Oh, okay. Do you ever go into the woods? I asked. Clown said, well, maybe a time or two for a drink. Now, that's none of y'all business, though. Just go in and enjoy the show. Me and my brother went into the ring for the performance. We loved it. We practically laughed at every joke, and the tightrope act kept us on the edge of our seat. After the performance, the sun was setting, and we went out to see what looked like the manager talking to the clown at the entrance. Kids, I hear Mom yell. Come on, we're going home now. Me and my brother were exhausted after the day. We went home to bath and eat a meal before calling it a night. That night, I woke up to the sound of my front door opening. I looked out to see not only the same clown at the edge of the forest, but also my little brother heading for him. My first instinct wasn't to get my parents, but instead to run as quickly as possible to retrieve my brother before it was too late. I went outside and saw Jimmy follow the clown, who had retreated into the vast expansion of the woods. I took my flashlight and made my way into the dark woods to try and find him. I'm not going to lie and say I felt brave. It was terrifying. I felt like there was something always behind me. I felt like there were monsters just out of my vision, waiting to pounce out in an attack. I cried as I called out my brother's name. Jimmy! Jimmy! That's when I heard my name get called in return. I ran in the direction of the voice and saw my brother. Jimmy, I said, relieved. Come on, we gotta get home. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. Jimmy? I asked, wondering if that was really him I was seeing. That's when I heard something from behind me that startled me. It was Jimmy, the real one. Brother! I turned to look at him. When I turned to look at the thing, only to see it wasn't Jimmy anymore. It was me. I shook, and that's when I heard my dad's voice calling us from the entrance of the woods. I took Jimmy and ran with that thing behind us, still staring at us. I ran up to my dad. What in tarnation are you kids doing out here? The first question I thought to ask was out of the blue, but necessary. How do I know it's really you, Dad? My dad gave me a confused look. That's when we heard the sound of what seemed to be a deer being killed in the distance, ripped to shreds by the sounds of it. We ran home and locked the door. For the better part of a month, we could hear the creature running around the woods, killing deer and anything else it could get its hands on. I've no idea why it didn't kill me or Jimmy or the clown from the carnival. My dad and Mom had prohibited us from ever going into the woods again because whatever that thing is, it's done stalking. It wants to hunt now.